Welcome back, everyone. We are now on episode 12 of MKTV. We are here with a very special guest. Now, you may know him from the Outlaws franchise or Assassin's Creed or any game in Montreal. This man has worked on every one. Welcome to the show, Shawn. How are you?
I'm great, Dale. Thanks so much for having me on.
It's great to have you on. And what I was saying before when I was doing my research, going on IMDb and looking at all the studios, it looks like you've worked with like every studio where you live. Because you're based in Canada, if that's correct, and
Yeah,
you've worked with a lot of Montreal studios. I've noticed.
I have.
You've worked
Yeah,
with.
no, I've had a chance to work on a lot of great projects at a lot of great companies, Eidos, Warner Brothers, Ubisoft, a lot. Um, other smaller ones, Red Barrels, stuff like that.
Do you feel like a veteran coming into any Ubisoft game with how long you've been working with them? Because like you've been in the Assassin's Creed franchise since what, the first game, and Far Cry,
Yeah,
Extraction, Rainbow Six Siege. You play Lion. Like, do you feel
yeah.
feel like a veteran coming into these games? Because like with how long you've been working with the studio.
I mean, I suppose I think I have a lot of experience in the field just 'cause I've been doing it for so long, and I've worked on so many projects, and motion capture technology is always evolving at a pretty rapid rate. So I've been able to keep up with the different techniques and technologies that have emerged around motion capture. So in that sense, yes, I'd say certainly, but not so much. I'd say in the sense of I know I've been in a lot of games, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I that means I get to keep working on games endlessly. Like I haven't been in a significant game in a while. I've done a few smaller games in the last couple of years. Kind of anxious to do my next one, to be honest. But that's the thing with Canada is your success isn't necessarily a guarantor of future success. So you're always kind of on the grind as an actor. But I like that because it kind of, I mean, it'd be nice to have more guaranteed employment, but it keeps you passionate, it keeps you hungry. Um, so I feel confident when I audition for stuff. Absolutely, because I do have a lot of experience, but I never take it for granted that I'm going to book anything because it's a very competitive game out there, and um, it's a pretty large market and a very narrow kind of casting field. So yeah, I mean, I'm always anxious. I just had a callback for something that was close. I booked a
Ooh,
motion capture project late last year, but that fell through in early January, which is too
ooh.
bad because I was really excited for that. So that also happens in the industry. So when work comes, I'm very grateful.
With you, obviously working for Ubisoft for so long, are you friends with anyone over there? Do you have like people you love working with behind the scenes, or?
Sure. I mean, the Ubisoft games are shot at a motion capture studio called Studio Alice, which is in the east end of the city. And that's where I've shot the vast majority of my Ubisoft projects. The rest, which was a lot, Watch Dogs Legion and Far Cry 6, those I shot at Ubisoft Toronto. So that's in Ontario, another province. Um, but the rest was at Studio Alice. So I do know or knew, the floor manager, the some of the technical team, the sound guys, the people in the suiting room who take care of the mocap suits, the cameras. They have a very dedicated team, so I really got to know those people over the years. But also, like most jobs, there's a lot of turnover in the motion capture industry, in the video game industry. So any of those people only kind of be there for a few years and then they kind of get changed out for other people. So all the way from casting to personnel, back in the heyday of Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, and all that stuff, I was pretty tight with all those people. I knew them all pretty well. But I actually went back last year to do a tiny bit of work on a game I can't talk about, but it's coming out soon. Um, and I think there was one or two people there that I remembered. The rest were all, I'm like, oh, where's this guy? Oh, he left. Where's this person? Oh, she transferred to this division. So there's that. But on the other hand, actors, it's a pretty tight, small community in Montreal. So often, if you get booked on a project, there's a very good chance you're going to work with an actor that you know or that you've worked with before. So in that sense, yeah, I do have a lot of work buddies, and there's some people who are a bit like me in the sense that they're recurring, like they often get hired to do like NPCs or living world stuff or small parts in games, either voice or motion capture, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think I have a more of a consistent friend circle with other actors because I see them on other projects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But Ubisoft is wonderful. It's one of my absolute favorite places to work in Montreal because the team is great and their projects are always a lot of fun.
And with the roles that you have had, obviously we'll start with Assassin's Creed because you've been in pretty much a lot of the Assassin's Creeds that I saw, and I wanted to know if you could talk us through some of your most memorable roles you've had in the Assassin's Creed franchise.
So that's really that game is at the genesis, I think, of my motion capture career. And the reason why I say that is many, many years ago, I was at this small studio at the time, now they're very big, called Game On. And at the time, they did just audio recordings. And I was there either for an audition or for a booking, I forget which. And I arrived early, as you should when you're an actor. So I arrived early, but very early, and I look out and I see my buddy Simon, who's a director, out having lunch on the balcony with some man I didn't know. So, a friendly guy. I'm like, hey, can I sit with you? I'm waiting for my audition or whatever. They're like, yeah, come sit down. So Simon introduced me to this guy, and I'm like, oh, hey, Sylvain, nice to meet you. I'm Sean. What do you do? He says, oh, I work as head of mocap at Ubisoft. And I'm like, mocap, what is that? Like, I didn't know what that was at the time. It's like, oh, it's movement with reflectors and that technology and infrared cameras. And I was fascinated. I was like, wow, that sounds incredible. And I did something I almost never do in my career, which is like, I pitched myself. Like, you should hire me, which is not, I have an agent. She takes care of that. But I don't know. In the moment, I was like, hey, listen, man, I'm a martial artist. I'm a physical actor. I'm bilingual. I'm a gamer. I love movement. I think I'd be really qualified. If ever you need actors to come in, do anything mocap related, I'd love to try it. And he said, yeah, man, I'll keep you in mind. And usually when you hear that, you're like, yeah, sure. Actors
Yeah,
want work,
yeah.
stop the presses. That's new. But I think it was like 2 weeks later, I got an email saying, hey, do you want to come in for a half day just to do some like living world or whatever? And I said, yeah, so I went in and I was great. I thought I was really good at it, and they really liked me, and it was a natural fit for me with my skill sets and sensibilities. And then, so I started doing a little bit of mocap through that, and then not long after, auditions came out for Assassin's Creed 2. So I went in and I read for Machiavelli, and I got booked as Machiavelli. So that was huge because I then got to do him in the booth and in the game. So I got to do a ton of mocap for him. And then because I was around for him so much, I played guards and I played other things, and they started bringing me back for other games. I came back to play him in Brotherhood. I think Revelations. I don't know if he's in that. I forget. Um, and then because I was kind of part of the Ubisoft family, I would audition for or sometimes get cast for other parts. So then I got cast as Stéphane Chaffeau in Assassin's Creed 3. And then I think I had a small character in Assassin's Creed 4. I forget, like a very small part. Like my parts got smaller over time because Machiavelli is such a big part, and I totally get that. And and then I think by the time Syndicate rolled around, I was just doing like NPCs and stuff. But then I got to play, what's his name? I forget now. It was the one with Bayek, the Assassin's Creed Origins, I think. Yeah, the one in Egypt or near somewhere in the
I'm
Middle East.
no help when it comes to Assassin's Creed.
So I got cast as this arena, the guy who runs the arena, this like oily, unctuous kind of guy, which is super fun to play. So that was nice to come back to do another speaking role. And then it's just, here and there, a bit of living world stuff off and on. But one thing kind of led to the next, like me being so present in these projects, I also got to work with different directors and different producers. So when other non-related projects would show up, often I'd be, my name would be put into the mix to work on them. That's kind of how I got Wrench, and a couple other projects kind of branched from that. But that was the first one, the first big thing. And that's Assassin's Creed 2. I actually worked on Assassin's Creed 1, not in mocap, but I did do a character who's a super annoying character who's like, "Oh, I lost my flags, have been stolen. Please, you have to find my flags. They're all over the city." So you have to kind of run around the city whenever you find a friggin' flag. You have to find like 100 flags or something, and you
Oh,
get
jeez.
an achievement or something. So the annoying flag guy was me in the first Assassin's Creed, and then I got to do Machiavelli in the second, and the rest, like I said. So yeah, I love the series. The games are great too. I played all the way up to three, and then I kind of fell off of it, and then I jumped back in for Odyssey, I think. But I'm looking forward to Assassin's Creed, the Japan one, Shadows, is it called?
Yeah, I'm not sure
That
what it's
looks
called,
fun.
but it looks sick. It does look really
Yeah, I
good.
was a huge fan of Ghost of Tsushima, so it's gonna have some stiff competition, I think. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I'm a big gamer too, so that's
Like
part of the
that
fun of being a game actor.
with you, obviously, being in the gaming scene and doing motion cap. I think what since 2007 or 2008, I think it was. Was it
Something around there, yeah.
around there? Yeah. How do you think motion capture and just video games in general has evolved from when you started to now?
Boy, they've evolved in a very big way. Not just the technology, but also the production chain, I guess, or what? Not the production chain, but how we capture the information. So when I started, the first mocap work I did, I think other than Machiavelli, was I also did the physical mocap, not the voice, but the physical mocap for Sean Hastings, who's like that scientist guy in the modern age in the game, because it goes back and forth. So he was this British actor or stand-up comic or something, comedian, who did all his lines in England, right? So what they would do is they would put the helmets on us and the mocap suits, and our helmets would have this huge bundle of cables that would come out the back of it and be physically plugged into the computer banks that were right outside the volume. The volume is what we call the area that we shoot our motion capture scenes. And there was, 4 or 5 actors. There's all these wires everywhere, so every actor had to have a PA, a personal assist, a production assistant. I'm sorry, a production assistant shadowing them and basically wrangling their cables so we wouldn't trip over them and break our necks. So a lot of choreography of movement, and those helmets were just torture devices because they would tighten right here on the temples. So the second you put those on, you got an immediate headache, which would last, pretty much all day because you're wearing the helmet all day. And then at the end of the day, I remember, for some of the stuff we did, we had these actors. I think it was for the Black Flag. I worked on Black Flag quite a lot, doing minor characters and a lot of mocap, but non-speaking. And we had a lot of actors in from England. Actually, Galactus, Ralph Ineson, he was part of the cast. A super nice guy. He's playing Galactus in the Fantastic Four movie. Awesome dude. But I remember all these guys, like at the end of the day, they'd take the helmets off them and they'd be like, "Ugh, ugh," and they're sweating, and it's like they've just finished being tortured for 6 hours, 8 hours. Um, so yeah, because they would tighten right here, so they would
Oh,
like drive
jeez.
into your temple. So that was rough. But over time, they became like a bit more ergonomic, and how they attached to your head was different. And eventually, they went wireless. So then, that wasn't an issue with the cables anymore. But one of the main differences was when we had the cables in our helmets, what we would do is the production would give the actors, like me and these two other people, let's say, scripts for our characters. So Sean Hastings, I'd have to learn all his lines by heart. And then when I came in to shoot, we'd have them play it back, and then me and the other actors would block out the scene while doing the lines. And it wasn't good enough to just, flap our gums and layer it over um, the track, right? Like if the line was, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you," right? We couldn't go, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you," right? We'd have to, act it, give it
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
So we had to learn it by heart, lip sync, which is funny. Like it's a skill. Back then, I'm like, this is a very unique set of skills. Now everyone does this on TikTok, right? People lip sync scenes now, but it's basically that. We would lip sync the performance, make physical choices. They would capture our physical choices and then overlay the audio from the actors that was recorded beforehand, and that's how they got their performance. Now they do something called performance capture, which is the whole performance being captured instead of just mocap, which is motion capture. So in performance capture, you have the mocap suit, but also the helmet, which has cameras to track your face and a mic to get your vocal performance. So they have everything from you: facial expressions, vocal performance, and physical performance. And they use that also for television, movies. If you see behind the scenes stuff of like She-Hulk, for example, you have Tatiana Maslany. She's sitting talking as She-Hulk, and you see her in the gray mocap suit with the little markers. She's got the helmet, she's got the camera up front, she's got the mic. And you just get used to it. You get used to having these things in your face as you're moving and not locking helmets with other actors when you're getting too close. But overall, the technology has gotten lighter, it's gotten more portable, and it's gotten more accurate. Like facial animations really come along. I remember back in the day it was very stiff. Now it's very subtle. You get some really incredible photorealistic performances from performance capture. So it's really approaching film at a very, very rapid rate. And like, last year I worked on this project. I probably don't know if I can say the name because I'm always under an NDA for stuff. But basically, they used GoPros. This is mocap data we're getting. They used GoPros set up in a ring and ran it through this AI program that extrapolated our movements into motion capture data. So portable, no need for mocap suits, no need for reflectors, not as accurate the data, but still very impressive. I'm sure within 5 years we'll be capturing motion capture on our phones, almost certainly. You know what I mean? So it's fascinating to see how the technology has advanced, which is funny because that's all for performance and motion capture, and then on the voice side, that hasn't changed in like 100 years. It's like mic, actor,
Yep.
go, right?
Yep.
Like that hasn't
Just
really changed.
just the same.
Um, yeah, but it's an exciting industry to be part of because it's always evolving, and I'm fascinated to see with advances in CGI, AI. I mean, I'm not a fan of AI, but I understand it can have some practical applications. Of course, I'm anxious to see where it goes and how that affects entertainment in general, video games especially.
Kind of in the similar range, but with you, being in the industry for so long and playing video games for so long, what's your thoughts on how graphics have changed from when you started to now and how big they have evolved? Because, like, if you look at, say, for example, like Gran Turismo, and you look at number 2 and you look at number 7 and how crazy it is. Like from the evolvement, because you've experienced, the PS1, the PS2, the PS3, same with Xbox. So, like, how do you feel?
You're
Not
making
to
me
make,
sound old
yeah,
now.
no, not to make you feel old at all. But
It's
like,
okay. Yeah, it's just a number. No, but look, that's a great question, and this is an honest to God true story. It's going to date me severely, but that's fine. I remember distinctly, okay, being at a friend of my parents. Okay, so I was born in 1973, so it must have been late. I think it was late 70s. I don't know how old I was, but I was probably 5, maybe 6. And
okay,
we were at my parents' friend's house, and we were in the basement. And I remember they're walking around. I don't remember much because I was very young, but I do remember this. And they were walking around. They were talking, and they had a television. And in front of the television was this giant box, this big angular box with two like knobs on each side and a couple buttons. And I'm like, what is this? Like,
what is that?
what is that? Because this is before VCRs existed. This is before like it couldn't. It wasn't a record player. Like it was nothing familiar. And they're like, oh, it's a video game. It's called Pong,
Oh,
right? So it's
jeez.
literally one of the first ever video games. I know Pong technically isn't the first video game. There was someone like I think Texas Instruments or something. They did something before then, but Pong is commercially the first known video game. You would buy the Pong console, right? And it's basically just, I don't know if you're familiar with Pong because
I
you
did
were
no
definitely
no no. I do know Pog. I do know Pog. Yep.
born in 1973. But one guy, one person controls this paddle, the other person
Yep.
controls this paddle, and it's tennis, and you bounce the ball back and you try to make the other person miss it, and that's it. It's table tennis electronically, that's it. And I remember even at that age, I was like, whoa, what a crazy concept. Fast forward to, my first computer was a Commodore 64, and then I started playing video games like, Bruce Lee and God, so many games. I can't remember any titles now, but like, some of the classics too, and arcade games and stuff. And, we're talking 8-bit graphics, then 16-bit, then the 64-bit, and then the Commodore 64, then the Commodore Amiga, which was the next generation, and then
Wow.
the Atari and the ColecoVision. And my parents never bought me a console because they're like, video games are a waste of time. You'll never amount to anything with video games. Now they sing a different
Yeah,
tune
because now look at your career now.
because I make a living doing it. So I remember the evolution of graphics. Every new generation was like mind blowing. But I do find now that has really stopped. Like it's really hit, I think, as good as they're going to get, other than like photorealism, really. If you look at the difference between the fourth and fifth generation, I find it's tiny, right? Whereas, you know, think of games like, well, like even when you play like remakes of games, like right now I'm playing Resident Evil 4, the remake, because I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil series, and I'm playing and I'm like, man, the graphics are great, but I remember them being pretty good. Then you look at footage from Resident Evil 4 from 2005, by the way. I'm like, this is a 20-year-old game? God, how old am I? Um, and you're like, oh my God, these graphics are terrible. But back in the day when Resident Evil 4 came out in
you
2005,
you
I'm
thought
like,
that was
damn, these
so
graphics
good.
are slap, right? I had the same attitude towards the graphics in 2005 as I do now. They're always like, oh, they're great. I think the last jump I noticed was when I think I got a 4K television
Oh,
a few years ago, and I had a PS4 because I upgraded to PS5 last year, a couple years ago. But I had a PS4 at the time, and I had God of War, um, which is a beautiful game. And then I put on the 4K settings, and it just sharpened everything in a way that I was like, holy shit, I didn't know graphics could be this detailed. And then I saw the difference, but since then I find things haven't really, like I haven't played, Horizon Forbidden West, for example. The graphics don't look that much better than uh, the first one, for example. You know what I mean? Um, so where does it go from here? Who knows? I think sound too is something I remember, like 8-bit. I don't know if that's a thing for sound, but like 8-bit
yeah,
equivalent
yeah, yeah,
sound.
yeah.
When Mario is counting in Punch Out, and he's like, meh, 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 meh. Like that's him going one,
Yep.
two, three, four, five, six, or music being 8-bit music. Now it's orchestral. You know what I mean? Like that's really increased too. And another good indicator is sports games. I remember a few years ago, I saw footage on TV, and my brain went, "Oh, I wonder what match that is." And I'm not a big sports fan, but I'm like, it looks like a soccer game. And then it's like FIFA 2023. I'm like, oh shit, that wasn't footage from a soccer game. That was, a video game. Holy crap. But because, they use motion capture now to capture those players, so they move like people. So it's much easier to fool our brain into it being real as opposed to keyframe. Keyframe is the type of animation they used before mocap, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like cell animation, one cell at a time. And that's why things look really janky, and you still see it today in video games, especially if, like I work in mocap a lot, so I'll play games, especially like games where you have dialogue trees, like say Mass Effect or stuff like that. When you're talking to people, you're like, this is keyframe, you can tell, right? They're like, listen, Shepard, I want you to know that I blah blah blah. So these very like canned
Yep.
animations, you can tell that's keyframe. Whereas in a cutscene, someone will move in a way that they're very human, like, oh, that's definitely mocap. You know what I mean? Um, I'm not saying keyframe's bad. It's just mocap brings a level of realism that you know. So from a graphic standpoint, uh, kind of helps the graphical quality when the movement is also better than what it used to be, than keyframe animation. So yeah, it's come a long way. I'm anxious to see where it's going to go. I think video games, movies, and AI are probably going to meet as some kind of singularity. I think in the near future, in the short term, and something new is going to come from that. So hold on to your butts.
Just want to say you did not show your age at all at the start of that question. Nah, did
Okay.
not. A big rectangular box. Oh man. I was trying to guess. I'm like, okay, what is he about to say? Is he about to say Atari, Nintendo, and then you did way
Oh,
before any of
the
that.
OG,
Yeah, the
the
OG.
OG console.
I don't know if you remember this, but there was like a soccer match that was going on, and people wanted to watch it obviously without paying for like a subscription to like the service that you watch it on. And there was a guy streaming it on YouTube, but what he was doing was he was streaming a FIFA replication of the match, and everybody thought it was real. And then like halfway through, he paused it, and you saw FIFA, and everyone in the chat was like, "Wait, what? What's going on here?" And they all believed it for like I think like 40 minutes. And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Well, that makes me think of, I mean, this wasn't a joke, but um, recently, like last week or something, there was I think a tennis match, and whatever country couldn't broadcast it. They weren't allowed or whatever, so they like ran it through Wii Sports or something, and like they broadcast the match with the Wii Sports avatars so people could follow the tennis game, but it's Wii
Uh,
Sports, you know what I
it's
mean?
crazy. Now, moving on from that, one of the characters that you obviously play, I actually played Watch Dogs 2 and Legion just before this interview.
Oh, you did your
Yeah,
homework.
I did.
Nice.
Yeah. And Siege, I've been using your operator as well, but we'll get to that.
Okay, cool.
The Wrench is a very cool
Yeah,
character, and if you
thank you.
Google it, everyone agrees that it's their favorite. It was actually there's like a Reddit dedicated to you, which is weird to think about in a way, but also cool. What was that process like of bringing the role to life, and what do you think makes it a fan favorite when it comes to the Watch Dogs franchise?
These are great questions, by the way. I just want to say
Oh, thank you, thank you.
you're asking me some really interesting questions. So thank you, first of all. Wrench is hands down my favorite character that I've ever played. He's just so much fun. Um, Basically, when Watch Dogs was being Watch Dogs 2 was being produced, they wanted to first do something called a vertical slice, which is like a small sampling of gameplay, character, mission, style, music, just to give the higher ups an idea of what it's going to look like and get approval and get funding, and or the higher ups go, axe that, add this, change that. Um, so the guy who was in charge of that had directed me in um, the DLC for the first Watch Dogs game. I played a bunch of minor characters in that game. So I don't know, he knew me, my manic energy, funny guy type of thing. And Wrench initially was conceived as this like big, like tough, gritty voiced kind of like he's the enforcer of DedSec, and he's this big badass. And Lars, the director, Lars Bond, by the way, coolest name ever. Thank you very much. So Mr. Bond, Lars is like, that's so obvious. I don't want to do that. Here's what I want to do. I want to do the unexpected. I want to take that look and combine it with your manic energy, Shawn. Have you seen Mr. Robot? And I'm like, I have not. He's like, well, there's a character in Mr. Robot named this, and he's like a motor mouth, and he never shuts up, and he's manic. And I'm like, okay, I didn't research that because I didn't want to copy a performance, but being manic and high energy and all that is very much in my wheelhouse. I was a huge fan of Jim Carrey growing up, so that kind of crazy energy is something that I'm very familiar with. So I took this kind of hyper kind of guy thing, and we put that on top of the leather spiky dude, and it made this wonderful juxtaposition that worked super well, right? And funny, funny side note, when we went to shoot the first scene in the vertical slice, Lars is like, "Give me 100%," and I'm like, "You don't want my 100%. I should." He's like, "No, no, no. Go as big as you can." I'm like, I think that's a mistake because you don't know who you're dealing with here, but fine. So we do a take. I'm like, what? He comes back. He's like, okay, take it down 15%. Right? So
Hey, you tried
Wrench
to warn
is
him.
not is not the full is not dialed to 11. But Wrench is kind of me, just without a filter. He's a bit more inappropriate than I am. Um, but his humor, his outlook, his pop culture, his love of pop culture, his references, that's very me that kind of injected that into the character. So yeah, that mix worked really well, and it worked really well with the cast. We had such a good cast. Like, there's such good people, and we really gelled, and it was amazing. Um, and then how can I put this? So once, like, we had to establish relationships between DedSec because they were written, but the specifics of them were kind of left to the actors. And I won't go into it, but there were some cast changes, like people who were cast initially in the game who got swapped out for other actors because of whatever reason. So that kind of broke some of the dynamics we had initially planned. Like, I can say this: Wrench and Sitara were supposed to be much closer initially in the dynamic. Like, they were really close friends. And that kind of changed when the other actor came in, and she formed more of a bond with Marcus, and then I kind of drifted more towards Josh and kind of did that dynamic, which worked super well though, for sure. So that's how kind of Wrench came to be, and we refined him over time. And the idea was, I'm not going to play him. That's just for the demo. Once they cast the game, they're going to get higher profile actors or people from LA or New York or England or whatever, because Ubisoft, for some reason, in Montreal, they seem to always want to cast outside of Montreal. I don't know why. We have such great actors in Montreal. We're such a good talent pool. So I was expecting just to do the work and be done. But sometime after, I got a call saying they're going to keep you. They want you on as Wrench.
Oh, wow.
Because, well, also, not to sound too full of myself, but I'm like, okay, if you're gonna replace Wrench, I get that, but who the fuck are you gonna hire to do that kind of job? Because it was a crazy job, you know what I mean? It was very intense, and it was really fast and very unique in a sense. So yeah, just like my personality and my sensitivities and that character worked really well. The cast, we had this really nice synergy. And once the writers, who I knew from other projects, knew I was playing Wrench, they started modifying the script a bit to include a higher propensity for pop culture references, which is something that I would do a lot of as Wrench. So, hey, it just kind of evolved out of that process. I didn't have to audition; it just kind of gave me the part. I kind of did a great job with it, put it out of my mind. They said, "Come back," and then we had our cast, and then there you go. And then Legion. That was such a nice email to get saying, "Do you want to come back and play Wrench?" Oh my God, what a
Hell yeah, I do.
terrific offer. Yeah, absolutely. And that was a nice challenge because he's older and he's more mature and he's left Wrench behind, but he kind of brings the mask back, kind of for one last, which I think is a cool idea. And how they wrote him alongside Aiden, I thought was terrific. Noam is such an awesome guy, so working with him was great. I got to work with him in the first Watch Dogs because I played minor characters. So in the first Watch Dogs, some gangster guy sticks him up at the beginning of the game. He got face tattoos and he gets stabbed by Jordy. That's me. That's someone I
Oh,
played in
wow.
the game. Yeah, I'm Mr. Get Face Tattoo Get Stabbed guy.
Great
And
role
then
description.
and they expanded the character, like you kind of found out that he was bi and he used to be married to a man, and like all these nice little things I think that added not only to the character, but it showed that the developers were kind of listening to the community, not the fans necessarily, but I mean the community as a whole. Because after Watch Dogs 2, like my Twitter blew up, and I had all these people who were like, "I love Wrench, and he's so great, and is Wrench gay, and is Wrench trans, and is Wrench bi, and what is Wrench?" And I'm like, Wrench is whatever you need him to be.
Yeah,
Like,
Wrench is the wrench.
I will never tell you he's not, like, if it serves your fandom, go with it. You have my blessing. You know what I mean? And I think part of the appeal for Wrench is, I think there's a few things. I mean, it's hard for me to be objective because I play the character,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
from what I've been able to observe and talking to fans, and as a storyteller and an actor too, I have an eye for story and character. I kind of have to. Um, I think with Ranch is a number of things. One, I think he's masculine without being macho, right? He's not toxic. He's not a coward or he's soft or anything. I've I've seen a portion of the fandom who, the straight female fandom who's like ranch, they're they're salivating for him a bit. He's got this bit of a bad boy, capable, confident thing. So I get that. The tattoos, that's cool too for some people. But because his friendship for Marcus is so pure and so like genuine and honest and unfiltered, I guess. I think that really strikes a chord with people. How like men can be intimate and have friendship, true friend, and love without it being, gay. And I don't mean gay in a bad way. I mean it doesn't have to be romantically. It doesn't have to be a romantic thing. Men can love each other and be bros. But I think you see that so little that a portion again of the fandom saw Wrench's attitude towards Marcus and thought, oh, maybe there's more to friendship. Maybe he's romantically interested, or maybe he's bisexual, or maybe whatever. And again, I'm not one to say no. That's no, never. No, Wrench would never. Like, of course not. Like, whatever works for you. So as long as it's not harmful to anyone, I'm all for it. So I think those factors work in his favor. Then you add in the anarchist, the whole fuck you to the law, fight the power, you know, tear shit down, all that stuff. People, especially in this day and age, they really react and connect to that because he's a bit of a power fantasy. Well, DedSec as a whole is a power fantasy. You want to be able to be part of them and fight the system, and I totally get that. And then finally, I think another aspect is the mask. Yes, we see Wrench's face briefly in the game, but for the vast majority of the game, he's got that mask on. And what a mask does to a character, to a protagonist, is you can project yourself into that character because you could be under the mask. Like as a kid, my favorite hero was Iron Man. My reasoning was, well, I can't be Superman because I don't have his powers, and I can't, I can't be Doctor Strange because I don't know magic. But I could be Iron Man. I could be in that armor. I could be the one flying around my own Iron Man armor, and wouldn't that be awesome? So I think Wrench is kind of the same thing. Like anyone could be under the mask. It could be you, right? So, and it's also a shield. Like he's allowed to operate, like obviously shielding his identity from the world around him, and he doesn't really face consequences for him. And that's also kind of a nice bit of a nice power fantasy too, to be anonymous in a sense, but still powerful and impactful. So I think all those things together, and he's fighting for a good cause with the rest of DedSec, so he's a bit of a hero that way. But I don't think it's a coincidence that a large portion of my fandom for Wrench is queer, gay, trans, along the LGBTQ plus lines, which I think is amazing and so unexpected because I didn't play him with any of that in mind. I just played him the way I felt he should be played. To see people connect to him that way along those lines, I think is fantastic. And it's been one of the nicest bonuses of being an actor that I never anticipated. Because, again, if I was born in 1973, this is before the internet, this is before Twitter, this is before social media. Back then, if you were a fan of someone, you had to either go to their concert or their red carpet or write them a letter. Now, if you're a fan of someone, you can literally take your phone and go, hey, Olivia Rodrigo, I love your music. And who knows, maybe she'll be like, hey, thanks. And you're like, ah! Right? Like, to me, it's nothing to just someone go, I love Wrench, he's great. And I go, oh, thanks so much, send. Right? And they're like, you just made my week. And I'm like,
Well,
I did this with my fingers for 2 seconds and I made your week. Like, that's amazing.
it's funny how
If
that
I can
works.
bring that much joy to someone by taking so little out of my day, how can I not? You know what I mean? And the people I've met, and all the fan art, and it's just been amazing. And Watch Dogs is old now. It's an old game. It's like what, 8, 10 years old or
Yeah,
something.
around there, 2014, I think was the first
I
release.
still get messages and tweets and people saying, "Hey, I loved your work. Thanks so much for for bringing Wrench to life. So I know he had an impact because I mean that 10 years for a game is a long time. It's a
Still,
very long time.
still getting
But it's
recognized.
yeah, people still asking for sequels. I don't think it's going to happen. I doubt it. I very much doubt it. But yeah, I'd love to play him again one day if I could.
Moving on from that, and from your answer before about Wrench, another character that you do, obviously, again with Ubisoft, is Lion in Siege, which I have been using. I've been giving him a crack to get the lay of the land. Have you used him have you played Siege? Have you used him as an operator?
Yes, I have. So I'm not a big fan. I love gaming, but I'm not a big fan of PvP in general. I love co-op. I love playing with my friends against, PvE type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not a big PvP fan. So I did play some Rainbow Six, but I'd usually play with one of my friends. She and I would do the terrorist hunt missions, which used to be a feature on the game. Now I think they got rid of all that stuff. It's like, nope, you face other people or nothing, which I get. It's what the game's built around. But, for my sensibilities and my friends, we'd go do terrorist hunt and, then I'd try all the different characters. So I would on occasion play with Lion. But it's a bit weird though because I'm playing and then like he'll talk and it's my voice.
Yeah, well,
And plus my friend's hearing me in stereo now because he talks and then I talk. So yeah, I play with Lion a bit, and then when Extraction came out, I picked that up as well. Wasn't crazy about the game. I like the concept, but aliens to me, I don't think are the right fit for Rainbow. They should be fighting people. I think they fight terrorists. So I tried him in that too, and I actually remember I had to go and record some additional new lines for the game because there's I forget what hex tech, not hex tech, but some kind of tech term, specialized tech that shows up in that game that we have to like. I found this, and I spotted some whatever. We have to do those lines. So yeah, I played him, but I do like the character, and I know he's pretty popular. And him and Doc get shipped quite a lot. I often seem to play characters who get shipped with other dudes for some reason.
I'm
Again, I
noticing
think
a
that's
trend here.
yeah. Well, I think it's part of
Yeah.
Again, I don't. Lion isn't. I don't play him like. I'm not playing him like some tough guy. He's just kind of not innocent, but he's a nice dude, and he's not typically macho and all that stuff. Yeah. So I mean, he's great. I would love to do. What I wish I could do with him is cinematic stuff, like the cutscenes they shoot
Yeah.
for their other seasons. He came close to being in a few, but they had to cut him for budget reasons because I had someone I knew who worked on those things back in the day. But I think now also like I'm less and less aware of him both in terms of popularity and work just because the roster of operators in Rainbow like keeps growing. So they have I don't know how many they're up to now, but they have a ton of operators. So now he's a fraction. He's one of this whole.
Think
And I get it. They're telling other people's stories, and so hopefully they'll weave him into something at some point because he's super fun to voice. I think he's a fun guy to play. But yeah, I would love to mocap him one day. PCAP, performance capture him. I've only done voice for him. I'd love to put on a mocap suit and walk around and be him. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
We'll just manifest it today. So when it happens, it happens.
That's right. When it
Yeah,
happens, I'm giving you a ring, my friend. I'll adjust for the 16-hour difference, but yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wind up calling you at 2 in the morning. Sorry about that.
Yeah. That's all right.
Dude, it's happening. Okay.
Mocap, it's happening. And another role that you play in Ubisoft, I feel like I'm just going down the list. You're in For Honor as well. I tried that game.
Yeah.
But what was that experience like? Because I know you voiced a couple people or a couple characters in that game.
So I worked on that game in two different aspects. I first did mocap for it. I was hired as part of the initial stunt team to get all the animations for all the sword strikes. So I worked with a stunt team, really long, intense days fighting with real swords, which was super cool and super dangerous. I literally almost killed somebody.
Oh, jeez.
Literally, I almost cut his throat open. Luckily, I was able to avoid disaster. So that was super fun. And then later, I got cast to voice. What's his name? Is he the Conqueror, the guy with the flail
Yep.
and the shield? He speaks Latin, so I'm yelling all these lines in Latin. And then later, they had me do the non-speaking, the non-verbal. sounds of exertion, pain, whatever, for the hitoriki, which is a Japanese character. So they got an actual Japanese actor to do his spoken stuff because I don't speak Japanese and I'm not Japanese, but all is like all that stuff, all the noises he makes because he loves getting hurt. He's got a bit of a kink. That was me. So, and I think maybe because I did that, the Conqueror, his efforts is another actor. It's not me. So when he speaks, Teoxidam, that's me. But when he goes, huh, that's another dude. And then when the Japanese guy says something in Japanese, I can't think of anything right now because I don't speak Japanese, it's some other actor. But when he like gets hit or smacks you in the head, that's me. And I also play one of the commanders of the ram in one of the modes called Siege. There's like a battering ram that's trying to break the gate down. I think there's three commanders that can be the voice. I'm one of them. So little things here and there in the game scattered around. Yeah, I don't think I'd do another character though because I've already done the Conqueror, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, I kind of tend to go into a franchise, take up space, and then I gotta move to the next one because gotta leave room for other actors, you know.
Now, going down the list again, I feel like we're going to be here for ages. I do apologize about all the separate questions in this category, but you're also in Far Cry, if from memory, as well. I think you're
Yeah,
in 4 and 3, I think. Are you in 3? No, is it just 4 and above?
I
You're in
think I was in two. I think I did
2.
voice work for two. I played some guards, two or three, I forget. I played some guards. I think it's the one that takes place in Malaysia or something. I'm not sure. And then I had a speaking role in Far Cry 6. I
Ooh,
play the Doctor Matthias,
that's pretty cool.
the one that takes place on Yara. I play
I
like this Hispanic doctor.
have yet to play 6, but I remember when the trailer came out and they had, I forgot his name, but obviously Gus Fring, he had him.
Giancarlo Esposito.
That's it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
kept having in mind like when that came out. I remember everyone was freaking out because that was big to see him as the character in Far
Yeah,
Cry.
yeah, he did a great job too. I played the game. I didn't have any scenes with him because our two characters would never really meet
That would
each
have been
other.
cool. That would have been
That
cool.
would have been great. I mean, I did see him briefly on a Zoom. We did a Zoom launch of the game, so all the actors were there, and there was a little window with Giancarlo Esposito. I'm like, what is life? There's Gus Fring right
Oh my
there on my
god, he's
computer.
right there.
Yeah,
I actually really want to play Far Cry 6. I've because I played 5, I played 4. Oh,
it's
6.
good. You can choose which if you play as the woman. If you can make your character male or female, like it's the same story. But well, what's nice is they got a man and a woman to both play the characters, so it's not the same performance with a swap gender. Their stories are slightly different in how they interpret them, which I think is pretty interesting.
Now, moving on from Ubisoft, I we'll go back to it eventually, but one of my favorite games is actually Outlast. And I love that game. I've played 1, I've played 2, and I've played Trials. And obviously, you're in all 3 games. One of my questions, with Outlast and Outlast 2, in Outlast 1, there wasn't many. I don't even think he spoke. I think it was all just pain sounds.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
the whole time was
yeah,
just pain sounds. And I'd love to know, like, what was that experience like in Outlast? Because that is I think it's one of the best horror games made. And I'd love to know,
yeah. Certainly gotten a lot of praise for it.
have you played it
Um,
as well? As well? At
A
all?
bit. I played the first one a bit. I don't think I played the second one. I'm just not a fan. Those games are fantastic, but I am not a fan of that genre of game. I need a weapon. I need to be able to defend myself in a game. I need to be able to kick ass. You can't tell me, no, no, just run and hide all the time. Like I don't like that kind of stress. I'm like living animal, kick his ass. Um, so I mean, it was a great experience, great team. The director, my friend Simon from the Fast and Screen Story, he's the one who directed me actually. Um, it was intense on occasion because it's a horrific setting. So I mean, I knew I was in trouble when the director says, "Oh, you're standing on a carpet of dead babies." I'm like, "Oh, that's what's at
Yep,
stake."
that sounds like
Okay.
Outlast.
Um, but I've always had a knack for. I think I'm pretty good at expressing myself non-verbally, whether it's physically or vocally. without words. So that came into play in a big way in Outlast, and it was nice to do Outlast 2 because then I actually had dialogues. I could actually have more character and more
What?
development. But to me, it was just like any. It didn't matter that I wasn't speaking because when you have dialogue, well, all you're really doing is conveying emotion anyway, right? Through your words. So if you remove the words, you can still have emotion. Fear, hope, pain. Um, to me, those things are you can still communicate them non-verbally. So it was challenging, but the torture scenes, like when I get my fingers cut off, like that
Yeah,
was
that's what
intense.
I.
Like I
Yeah,
almost threw up a few
that's what
times
I
because
was.
I was exerting myself so much. When you're telling your brain, you're like, "Ugh, ugh," like over and over. Your brain's
That's
like, "Oh, are we throwing up?" And you're like, "No, no, no, don't puke on the mic." Um, so that could be a little intense. And the finger torture was like a 2-minute take. We did it like 2, 3 times, so like
oh.
that got really intense.
I could.
But again, to me, it's part of the job, and it was a welcome challenge.
I just want to say you did it quite well because I remember playing Outlast for the first time, and man, Miles just went through everything. He had his fingers chopped off. He fell
He
from
really
great
goes through the ring.
heights. He gets thrown
Yeah, yeah,
against
yeah.
the wall. He got at the start of the game, bloody Chris Walker just throws him through the window, and you just sitting there and you just doing all these pain sounds. Oh man,
Fun fact, actually, I do speak in Outlast, the first
Whistleblower.
Outlast.
Is it Whistleblower that you speak in?
No, Whistleblower, I play Waylon Park, who
Yeah.
doesn't speak, but I had to record new sounds for him because I guess there was new context sensitive things. But in Outlast, you do hear me speak, just
Wait,
not
wait. Oh,
as
can I
Miles.
guess who it is? It's is it the guy? Um. Oh, who is it? No, because not Miles. Go on. I'm trying to think. I've got this. I believe in myself. Is it the guy that is in Whistleblower and he tries to stop Waylon from escaping? No, no, that's not.
No, it's in Outlast, not Whistleblower, not the DLC.
Can
It's
you
basically the SWAT captain.
can you
When you
explain?
when you first arrive at one of the first locations, there's a SWAT guy impaled on a stake,
Oh no way! That's
and the
you.
stake is pointing out through his neck.
Oh,
He's like, "You have to get out of here!" And he's dying. That's me.
that's cool.
Um,
That's pretty
they
cool.
could use me twice because I don't speak as the other character, so I changed my voice a bit just to make sure it was different enough. But yeah, that's
That's pretty cool. That's pretty
those are
cool.
always fun when those little things happen. Yeah.
'Cause don't you also voice is it radio chatter and whistleblower as well? I think that you do.
Maybe I don't remember.
That's
I
fair. It
recorded
did
that a
come out
long time
almost
ago.
actually a decade ago, I think.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, indeed.
wow. Also, with Outlast, what's your thoughts? About 3 months ago, Outlast announced that Lionsgate are going to be making an Outlast movie. What's your thoughts on that, and would you like to be a part of it?
My thoughts are sure, why not? I mean, horror movies. I mean, horror premises for a game can make for good movies. The industry seems to have broken the video game curse a while ago. I mean, there's several great adaptation movies out now, which is lovely. Um, how easy is it to capture the essence of
Yeah,
Outlast?
it's gonna
We'll
be
have
a
to
little.
see,
Imagine
right?
like,
You know what I mean?
because
It's
like
kind of a specific kind of experience.
what I
Uh,
reckon. You can. Sorry to interrupt you. Continue after this, but what I reckon they should do is Blair Witch, how they did like the found footage kind of style. I feel like that's what they should do for
yeah,
Outlast.
that wouldn't be bad. Yeah, that actually wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
Imagine they do the movie right, and they're like, "Hey, Sean, we want you in the movie, and your role is just the guy that got impaled on the stick. That's all
Oh,
you."
of course they do it in the set. That'd be a great
They,
cameo. That'd
yeah,
be a wonderful. They do that in like Last of Us. The girl who voiced Ellie was in it. Like they
yeah.
do little.
Or
Um,
actually, sorry, one question as well to add on. Sorry, I just thought of this. If they made an Outlast movie, right, that included both Outlast and Whistleblower, who would you want to be if you could pick one person that you did in both of those games? Who would you want to be to add on to your answer as well? Sorry.
well, I mean, if I had a choice of anyone, I'd probably choose Miles because he's kind of the original, the OG
Get
dude.
ready to get your fingers chopped off again. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and Waylon, I believe Waylon is Asian, Waylon Park, so I wouldn't want to play a Asian
I didn't know
character.
that, actually.
I
Wow.
think so. I think I saw a photo, or maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But I think Park is like a
Dude.
East Asian name. Anyway, um, oh, the movie, right.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
would I love to be a part of it? Sure, but the chances I think of me being involved are close to zero. Um, most like if it's a massive video game, hugely popular, oft sometimes they'll bring the people who worked on it in, you know? Like the Mario movie, the original actor, he had a cameo of some bit. I get that, Last of Us, etc. But like, when Assassin's Creed was announced, people were like, "Oh, you're going to be in Assassin's Creed." I'm like, "No, I'm not. They're going to shoot that in California. They're not going to fly me down for that. And they're not going to get." And it's not about Machiavelli. Like I have nothing to do with the story they're telling. Outlast, same thing. The Outlast movie wouldn't be for the fans of the game. I think it's for the public. Me playing the character would be valuable to fans. They'd be like, "Oh, he's the guy who did the voice." But I think the public at large would be like, "Who is that guy?" And nobodies don't sell movies, right? Stars do. So anytime these adaptations get made, the chance of the actors from Montreal who are involved being included, or I'd say close to zero. So I mean, if I got a call tomorrow, of course, I'd say yes. But I'm not holding my breath. That's not how it works.
I feel like if they gotta do it, they gotta bring back cameos from the original people, even if it's you just getting impaled at the start and you're telling
I think
them,
that'd be brilliant, or a message on a radio or
"Yep."
something, and be a little Easter egg. Go, hey, that's the original actor. I think that's a terrific idea. So talk to whoever you need to talk to,
Manifest this
and
again. Another thing will
that's it. We're
manifest.
gonna manifest a lot today.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Now, I don't know how much you know of the storyline of each games, but I'd love to know who you think went through more. Miles, um, or the guy in the main protagonist in Outlast 2, is it Blake? No, I forgot his name.
Blake,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who do you think
Blake
went through
Langerman.
more crap? Either in Outlast 1 or Outlast 2. I'm not including Wayland because that guy got off easy in which is
Yeah,
low.
well, I can't fully answer because I haven't finished and played through both games in their entirety, and I don't have an exact recall of everything they went through when I recorded it. But I'd say, as someone who is married and who loves his wife very much, if I was in Blake's situation, I would find that more horrific because not only am I being tortured and fucked up, but they're messing with my wife.
Yep.
That's why I'm like, especially Outlast 2. I can't play that game because if it was my wife in danger, I wouldn't be running and hiding. I'd be probably getting killed, but I'd be killing people while getting killed. You know what I mean? So I'd say that's probably a worse situation overall because more people suffer because of it. And there's that pregnancy thing, and it's all
Oh,
messed up and it's
dude. Yeah.
awful. Body horror. She's suffering too. Lynn, that's her name. Whereas Miles, he goes through hell, but it's just him, and it's terrible. But one person suffering, I guess, is better than
Two people.
2.5
Yeah,
people
2.5.
suffering.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah. Do you think also, because I saw that they did confirm that it isn't a priority now, but they would like to make Outlast 3. Do you think you'd maybe return for that as well?
Of course, I'd return. I'd be surprised. I mean, I'd be surprised if they hired me again, just because unless it's one of the two characters I've played, or three, I guess. Um, I'd be too recognizable, I think. Like, I was shocked when I got booked Outlast 2. I didn't know I was playing the main character. I thought I was coming in as an Easter egg or a callback to the first game. I thought the main character was going to be Lynn. I thought it was going to be a woman. And then I come into studio first day and I'm like, "Hey, Simon, by the way, who am I playing?" He's like, "You're the lead." And I was like, "Oh, okay, great news. What a
Hell
wonderful way to
yeah.
find out." So, I mean, if they wanted to continue a saga, absolutely. I would love any character I've played. There's no character I've played in my career that I would not return to. Um, they're all a unique challenge and fun to play. And I love telling stories. So yeah, I would. I was on Last Trials. I did some mocap, so I did some of the monsters and inmates and some of the NPCs in the cutscenes, but no voice work in that one. So yeah, but if they came back, I'd certainly say yes.
Now, moving on from that, I know. Actually, what's it like working with Red Barrel?
Lovely, lovely people, really down to earth. It's a pretty small company, so a lot of direct communication. They're great. I have no complaints. I definitely work with them again.
Now, moving on from that, there is a little role, or a role that you had that kind of piqued my interest. You were in Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I'm not sure
Yeah.
of your exact role in that, but I'd love to know what it was and your experience working on that game.
So Star Wars, it was through Ubisoft. So sometimes I get cast. They say, "Hey, can you come in to work on a project?" And I get the project always has a working title, so not the real name of the game because of confidentiality rules. So I forget what this was called, but it's like, Project Rocket, let's say, um, or Project Boom, or they'll have like some weird name. So I get the script at home and I'm reading it, and it's like boom, 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 Imperial Guard, and I'm like, Imperial Guard, that sounds like Star Wars terms. And then I keep reading, and it's like there was a mention of something in the script, and I'm like, oh my God, this is Star Wars. That was amazing. I found out that way. So I play an Imperial officer. So check over there, and he's got like a British accent,
Ah,
and he
yep.
commands stormtroopers. So I haven't played Outlaws. I know fans who have, and I told them to look out for me and tell me if they found me. No one did. I don't know if they didn't recognize me, maybe because I changed my voice. Maybe the character was cut. I don't know. I'd have to play the game, but not all that interested. Not because it looks like it's bad. It's just I've got a huge backlog of games to play, and it's not high on my list of priorities. If I get it on special, maybe one day I'll give it a try. I know the woman who plays Humberly, who plays the main character. She's lovely, so I'd love to see her work. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was like I forget 2, 3 sessions, and I got to work with an old friend of mine who directed me, and I've always loved Star Wars. So to be an Imperial officer barking commands at people was
Pretty
pretty
cool.
pretty
Pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Now moving on to live action, because obviously you've done quite a bit in that, and one of the roles, actually, I watched a short film just yesterday that you did. I think it was called Roed, where you play a police officer.
Yeah. No,
Which
thanks for watching that.
no,
Cool.
no worries. I do my research. I do my homework, but
Clearly.
I actually loved it. The uniforms were on point. I loved the story, the cars. What was it like working on that? Because I think the people that made it did a really good job on it, and I'd love to know your experience on that.
I agree. That was a lovely project, some lovely people. We did all that in one day of shooting. I was coaching the younger woman in the car, not the one driving, the other one,
Yeah, yeah.
Shoshana is her name. I was coaching her on how to use a gun, how to handle a gun, because I was playing a detective in a TV show, so she hired me to coach her. That's how I met her. And then while I was coaching her, the producer and the director were there, and they're like, "Hey, we're shooting a film. We think you'd be great for the cop. Are you interested?" I was like, "Yeah, send me a script. I'll let you know what I think." I didn't think they were serious at first, but then I got the script a few weeks later, read it. I fell in love, absolutely head over heels with the story. Had my wife read the script, which I don't do very often. She's like, "This is great. You have to do this." I'm like, "You don't need to convince me. I'm sold." I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So we went out, shot for a day. It was a long day, but super worth it. And I love how it turned out. And it was nice to be part of something impactful like that. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
world's becoming a crazy place. So,
Yep.
you know, storytellers kind of, it's what we do is we comment on the world, right? So it was nice to be able to have a voice to do that in a film.
Now, going back to Ubisoft for a second, with you being in so many Ubisoft games, there's a couple that I don't think you are in, like your Ghost Recon or your Tom Clancy's Division. Did you ever get an offer, like a chance to work on those, or?
So I did work on the Division.
Oh, did you? Really?
I did a little bit of motion capture work for the main character when they go, I think, into a shop. There's some animation of him or her going into a shop or talking to someone
Damn.
or
I
getting
feel
some
like I've
tech
missed the
done.
credit now. Damn.
Well, I don't list everything if it's really minor either, right? Because I don't want to be like, "Hey, I worked on the Division. Oh, who'd you play? Oh, 5 seconds of mocap. Like,
I was that guy
what's
that walked.
a day of shooting for me on a game is, it depends on the impact of the role. So I did work on the Division a little bit. I worked on some DLC for the Division 2. I played a character who has a voice in one of the missions. I forget what it's called. And what was the other game you mentioned? Because I think I worked on that
Ghost
too.
Recon.
And I didn't work on Ghost Recon, but I did work on Breakpoint.
Oh,
I did a little bit of motion capture for some of the military squad deployment stuff.
pretty cool.
Setting up a bivouac, a camp, deploying, moving with other people. I got to work with some military dudes. That was pretty fun.
That sounds pretty cool, mate. I just want to say I'm on to my last question now. I just
All
want to
right,
say,
cool.
yeah. Thank you for answering all my questions. I've actually really
Sure, man.
enjoyed
They've been great
this.
questions.
Thank you, thank you. Now, with you mentioned that you love the Resident Evil games, and I wanted to know, with you, being in this career, are there any studios that you'd like to work with, both in video games and also even maybe movie studios for live action? Is there anyone you'd love to work with in that case?
That's a great question. I keep saying that. Video game wise, I mean, I've worked with a lot of big studios. I'd love to work with all of the studios because I mean, there's so many. I play so many games, and there's so many of them. I'm like, oh man, this is great. Like, I'd love to be a part of this because it's Super Giant. I'm playing Hades right now. Super Giant did a great job, and the voice actors on Hades are pretty good. I'm like, I could see myself working on that game, type of thing. I think the only company I'm not really interested in would be EA Sports because I'm not a big sports guy. I don't feel the need to be, a FIFA soccer player, and they shoot that in Vancouver anyway. I'm in Quebec. Company-wise, I think a, com- a group I'd love to work with, but I'm not based in LA, so the chances of this are very remote. But the what are they called? The 8711 crew, the people who did John Wick,
Yep,
um,
yeah, yep.
Atomic Blonde. They did a lot of the fights in the Matrix sequels. They're choreographers. They're everything these guys do action wise is just top notch. So, any chance to work with them would be amazing. I also really love the Russo brothers because of what they did in the MCU, and all my favorite action scenes in the MCU are in Russo movies. So I'm sure working with them would be lovely. I don't know if you know this, but I'm also a stunt fighter and a fight choreographer, and I do action. So that's a side of me I don't get to do professionally as much on a high level as much. So anything that could let me not only act but also move and fight all the things I like doing
Well, just
is always welcome. That's why I love Wrench so much because Wrench gets to fight, he gets to be funny, he gets to do it all, and
gets
it
it
was
all. You
very
know,
rewarding. Yeah.
hey, we're doing a lot of manifesting today. We'll just put it in the air.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna owe you a
yeah,
lot by the time
yeah,
next
yeah.
month next
I,
month rolls
Dude,
around.
I know it's gone well if I ever get a message from you and it's like, hey, it worked. It worked.
Yeah, yeah. We'll do a second interview and I can tell you all about it if you want.
Yes. Well, mate, that was my last question. So, once again, thank you for taking the time to do this.
Good thing, Dale. That was fun.